I am struggling to express in words just how significant of a discovery this is. Because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock. This is not possible given the standard historical and archaeological narrative given to us about ancient Egypt.
We're talking about huge structures that go kilometers under the earth and that have these huge coils around them. And then these other structures built above that that basically look like Chinese architecture. And then you start looking at the schematics of what they found. It looks like a power plant grid. Just the giant pillars are 2 kilometers. Then there's giant blocks under them that are gigantic. I mean, this is amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, I've always been fascinated with the pyramids, and I've read a lot of history books about it, both mainstream and alternative. I've interviewed a lot of experts about it. And I also read what ancients said about it, like Plato and others that were really historians of their time. And these new discoveries that were just announced last week and got very little attention until just a few days ago are the most spectacular ever, using very sophisticated, high-powered satellite ground-penetrating radar. An international team of scientists, and they published their findings, have been able to scan down deep into the Giza pyramid complex, and particularly the Khafre pyramid, the second largest in the world, second only to the other pyramid right next to it. There's obviously 3 big ones and a bunch of older ones, or they think maybe later ones, copies of those that weren't as good. Now, I remember being a little kid, and my dad's a big historian, he reads all sorts of stuff, and him saying that the word was some type of energy system, and that there was different technologies that they now know exist, we're able to do it now, where you can sink different types of systems into the ground and pick up the latent energy of the planet, particularly if there's water running under it, and it creates a lot of different phenomena, and there's different ways to do it. The point is that in so many ancient texts and in all the lore, they've said that there's a giant energy complex underneath these pyramids. And we've had, for really the last 60, 70 years, the Egyptian government not letting anybody excavate, not letting anybody investigate, and being very, very secretive. And I remember all the different Egypt experts and others, even on mainstream news, and Art Bell and all of it, saying it's because there's these big giant structures under it, according to lore, and there's a lot more inside these pyramids, particularly under them. And so now, I'm about to get to several great reports breaking this down better than I am. One with our former colleague who we love, Greg Reese, who's always was talking about this. And it's just amazing. I mean, we're talking about huge structures that go kilometers under the earth and that have these huge coils around them. And then these other structures built above that that basically look like Chinese architecture. And then you start looking at the schematics of what they found. It looks like a power plant grid. So it would be hard for us to build this today. And it's clearly not just ceremonial. And if you go back to ancient writings and ancient lore, and that is really what legends are, is just over time records get lost, and the Library of Alexandria got burned and others. But the word was, and it's been passed on to us, that this was a giant, some type of energy system or communication system or weapon. And it was in the lore that Atlantis was out in the Atlantic, and it had some free energy system with automatons, big robot type people, or that humans would use. And there was flying ships that were described. And whether that existed or not, we're the new Atlantis now. We have all that stuff. So we know that we don't know much going back past 6,000 years. And whatever we're told about the history of humans is always changing. That's the thing about science and history. And basically nothing we were told 100 years ago is accurate. I mean, until the big comet hit one of the gas giants, Shoemaker-Levy, they thought the Earth only got hit every 20 million years or so by a giant meteor. Now we know it's every 100,000 or so. And with satellites, we can see giant craters all over the Earth that have just silted in and grown in, or have lakes in them. So what we're being told about the age of the Earth, all this stuff, we really don't know. The Big Bang Theory has been disproven. It just goes on and on and on. But this is just simply amazing because it is exactly in the lore what has been passed down, and it's just simply gargantuan. It is so huge. Wait till you see this. I mean, it's just amazing. It's not just these giant tubular structures and all these coils going down. Then they're on top giant blocks. It looks like solid blocks. And I've said this forever. Why don't they use ground penetrating radar? Well, it's gotten stronger and stronger and more sophisticated. And so now they're able to, imagine what the government has, but even private corporations shoot down into this mountain of artificially constructed stone. And we learn that it is just the capstone. The pyramid itself is the capstone for a giant subterranean complex. And so I want to play, there's a lot of scientists boiling it down and others. You can just go to X, it's trending the top of it, and look up the discoveries at the Giza pyramid complex. But I think two of the best boil downs, I watched 7 or 8 of them before we shot this, is one by Greg Reese. It's excellent. And then, but the one we're going to play first is Jay Anderson also did a really good job. But when you go on X, you can watch the scientist presentation. You know, they don't get into the history or the energy and generation structure or weapon structure that's been rumored, you know, to be. But then it was just rumored to be there and that it was a weapon or communication system. Now, all those legends, it turns out, are true, that these pyramids are just the tip of the iceberg of what is going on right beneath them. And again, even with modern excavation and things, some of these stones and blocks are so giant, so perfectly done, there's no way humans rolled these in there, folks. It's like Stonehenge. I mean, they can't even do that today. Stuff comes from hundreds and hundreds of miles away, and it's all perfectly done. I mean, it's amazing. There's been a lot of stuff going on this planet. So here are the two reports. Just absolutely amazing. And as we get more and more advanced technology, we're learning more and more about our world. And I really like to focus on really cool stuff like this instead of what the globalists are doing and the crimes they're committing. I mean, we still do that almost all the time. But it's just refreshing to just also look and say what a beautiful, amazing universe of wonder and discovery and mysteries about so many things that we're cracking open now. And the group is planning to try to go to the Egyptian government now and get authorization to go in there. But again, they can do this from space. The Egyptians can't say anything about that. Also reminds me what I said a few years ago when the Chinese balloon came over here and a half ago. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's looking at us. Folks, that balloon, which we now know was a spy balloon, obviously, because they reconstructed it and got pieces of it out from the ocean after they shot it down off the coast of the East Coast. That's nothing compared to satellites, folks, okay? So this is all going on. And if you think balloons or something, my God, just think about what these private satellites were able to do. I mean, I remember 30 years ago on local TV, they were on, the police now have these heat residence systems. They can see what you're doing in your house. And then there was a big backlash. So they stopped showing you what $30,000, $50,000 units on helicopters can do. I mean, they've had units for 50 years. They can just see right through your walls. It came out that the Xbox, even 16, 17 years ago, that looks at your movement and everything you do, that can scan not just you, but through the walls in your house and send back a total image of everything you're doing. It's radar, it's sonar, it's sending sound waves out or particle waves out or light waves out, and they bounce back. And then from the frequency of that and the resonance, they can create a very, very clear picture. So long story short, this is very complex, very fancy ground penetrating radar. And they'd already had some in the last few decades that was there that was not as strong. And they did see some of the structures, but now they're going down miles and miles, kilometers and kilometers of these structures. I mean, this thing is as tall as the tallest building in the world, or maybe even taller. We should look into that. I haven't done the numbers yet, but it just seems like, do we have any 2-kilometer tall buildings? Look that up. Because just the giant pillars are 2 kilometers. Then there's giant blocks under them that are gigantic. I mean, this is amazing. All right, I'm going to stop ranting. Just fabulously interesting. And we've reached out to Jay Anderson and, of course, the great Greg Reese to try to get them on the show, the Thursday show tomorrow. Thank you so much. Here are excerpts of both of their reports. Be sure to check out their X accounts for the full reports and more.
I am struggling to express in words just how significant of a discovery this is. What has just been announced in relation to the pyramids at the Giza Plateau and the plateau itself is so incredible, so awe-inspiring and narrative-shattering that I have been sitting here for the last hour trying to wrap my head around the implications of what we were just told. So this is pretty much breaking news because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who were studying the Great Pyramid of Giza with a non-invasive technology that was first developed by Filippo Bionde and Corrado Malanga called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography. So this was used to explore the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And this method leverages the analysis of micro movements typically generated by background seismic activity to achieve a high resolution full 3D tomographic imagery of the pyramid's interior and subsurface components. The recent findings from deploying this technology are nothing short of mind-blowing, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock, in fact over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground. 2 kilometers. Massive internal structures connected to the base of the pyramid and extending deep, deep down. This is what we know so far. Utilizing high-resolution radar images from Capella Space and Umbra, which are 2 private companies that specialize in satellite-based synthetic aperture radar imaging. This has allowed researchers to create a 3D model of the internal structure of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Now, this model has revealed a previously unknown chamber with 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof, which in of itself is an architectural design unlike any previously documented in the Giza Pyramid. But the most shocking discovery lies beneath the surface, below ground level. Radar tomography has identified vertical cylindrical structures extending for hundreds of meters beneath the pyramid. There are 8 of these cylindrical wells arranged in 2 parallel rows, descending to an astonishing depth of 648 meters. Even more intriguing, at the base of these structures are 2 massive cubic formations measuring approximately 80 meters in diameter. The tomographic data suggests that these are vertical wells with intricate spiral pathways. Now, this design not only implies a functional purpose, but also a level of sophisticated engineering that completely blows the dynastic Egyptian model out of the water. I mean, the pyramid itself was already a massive red flag in the ancient Egyptian historical narrative. But now, with this discovery, I think it's become impossible to say that the Egyptian civilizations that we understand, that we've been taught about, were responsible for building these structures.
Mainstream Egyptology tells us that the Giza pyramids were tombs for pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, and that they were built around 2500 BC using ramps, sledges, and levers. But the redundant mathematics in their construction, which include pi, the golden ratio, and the speed of light, along with the testimony of today's expert architects, suggests that the official story does not hold up. The massive underground structure revealed by the recent SAR data shows what appears to be a mechanical or functional system, and this has been hypothesized in the past. Nikola Tesla believed that the pyramids could harness Earth's natural frequencies. This arguably inspired his experiments in wireless energy transmission and scalar waves. In the Giza power plant, Christopher Dunn argued that the Great Pyramid was a power-generating machine using resonant and acoustic forces to convert mechanical stress into electricity. In the Giza Death Star, Joseph Farrell proposed that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a weapon of mass destruction using a type of physics that he calls paleophysics to focus energy as a scalar weapon. The cylindrical wells could be conduits for energy or sound waves, and the cubic structures might serve as energy storage or stabilization units, akin to components in a large-scale weapon or generator. And the detection of vibrations in the pyramid's internal structures reflects all of these ideas. The Khafre project hopes to plan an excavation in order to discover more about this underground structure, but history shows that this will be very difficult to get approval for. Greg Reese reporting. The Reese Report is now fully funded by my Substack subscribers. Subscribe today and support my work at gregreese.substack.com.
You're still here. I'm glad you stayed for those two great reports. We looked it up during the clips, and the Burj Khalifa in Dubai is the tallest building in the world right now. It's 0.8 kilometers. So the Great Pyramid, if it wasn't buried, or it's at the same site, the second largest pyramid in the world is actually the biggest. And it's not just the biggest there, it's the biggest building in the world. Wow. Incredible information. Again, I'll be covering more tomorrow on my show, 11 a.m. Central. Be sure and follow me right here on X at Real Alex Jones.
Here's where all eyes now are on gold and silver. Because gold went over $3,000 an ounce, it's at an all-time high. That's a very strong technical and psychological threshold number, that 3,000. So now that the world is looking at gold, the world is also going to be looking at silver. So even the massive growth that we've already seen, I'm guessing it's just the beginning.
Gut level, where do you think gold is in a month?
3,100 in a month, like in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then I think it gets to 3,200 by the beginning of the summer. And we could literally see 4,000 as momentum starts to gather and as the eyes of the world get on it. And then silver, you know, probably 50 to 75.
People need to call you, do a free consultation, leave your name and number, 720-605-3900, kepm.com/gold. Do the form, they'll call you back, they'll do a free consultation, they can roll over your IRAs, 401ks. Do it now, folks. Dr. Kirk Elliott, thank you so much.
My pleasure. See ya.
It's good to be right, isn't it? Wow.